My fiancé kept pressuring me to sign a prenup, just in case, so I had my lawyer add a clause he definitely didn't read. When Garrett first brought up the prenup, I wasn't suspicious. He was a successful architect, owned part of a firm, and I understood wanting to protect his business. "It's just standard practice," he said, sliding a stack of papers across our kitchen table. "My business partner insists all the guys do this." At first, it sounded reasonable. Then he got obsessive. Every few days, he would casually remind me, "We really need to get that paperwork done. Babe, my lawyer already handled everything. We just need your signature." When I actually read it, my stomach turned. It was dozens of pages of legal jargon that all boiled down to this. If we divorced, I'd get nothing. No alimony, no claim to anything earned during the marriage, no retirement. Even gifts would legally revert to him. "This seems pretty one-sided," I told him. Garrett's jaw tightened. "Do you want to marry me or not?" That was the moment something inside me woke up. I told him I was getting my own lawyer. He blew up. "So you don't trust me?" Suddenly I was ungrateful, paranoid, and stressing him out while he was under pressure at work. I found an attorney named Patricia. She read the prenup once and said very calmly, "This is financial abuse in legal form. If you insist on signing, we're not signing this." We rewrote it. On the surface, it looked the same. Disclosure, valuations, mediation, arbitration. Standard stuff, buried in dense language Garrett would skim at best. And in the middle of all that boilerplate, we added a very specific clause. If either party commits adultery during the engagement or marriage, they forfeit all rights to marital property and owe the faithful party $500,000 in liquidated damages. I brought the revised prenup home. Garrett barely glanced at it before signing. "Finally," he muttered, "now we can focus on the important things." I found out what those important things were when his phone buzzed during dinner. A preview flashed. "Can't wait for our trip to Cabo after your wedding. Love you. From Ivy." I waited until he was in the shower, heart pounding, and opened his phone. There were months of messages. He'd been seeing Ivy for a long time. They'd already booked a honeymoon in Mexico, right after our wedding. They joked about how long he'd need to stay married before divorcing me. One message from him. "She's loaded. This prenup guarantees I'll get half of everything when we split." I printed everything. Then I called Patricia. "Execute the adultery clause," I said. "I have proof." When the process server showed up at Garrett's door with legal papers detailing his infidelity, planned fraud, and his new $500,000 obligation, the look on his face was worth every cent of Patricia's fee. "You can't do this," he stammered. "This is insane." "Actually, I can," I said. "Check page 23 of your own prenup. The part you didn't read." His firm called him later, firing him and cutting off their partnership. Turns out that whole standard practice line was a lie. His business partner hadn't told all the guys to do this. That was Garrett's personal little scam. Ivy dumped him as soon as she learned about the judgment. I used the settlement money as a down payment on my dream house. Garrett got a job at a big box store, stocking shelves in an orange apron. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. A while later, a news story about the case made the rounds online. Not huge, but big enough. That's when my phone started ringing. "Is this Melanie?" a shaky voice asked one morning. "My name is Chloe. I saw the article about your fiancé. I think he did the same thing to my sister." Her sister, Brooke, had dated Garrett before me. He'd made her sign a prenup. Then he cheated on her with a woman from his gym and left her with debt, car payments, and nothing from the split. Brooke showed me her documents in a coffee shop. Same structure, same language, different lawyer's name, same Garrett signature at the bottom. Then Chloe mentioned something that made my skin crawl. He always said his business partner told him to do it. Some guy named Rick. Said women were just after money, and this was how men protected themselves. I called Patricia. "We need to dig deeper," I said. "I don't think I'm the only one." She hired a private investigator named Tony, a former detective who specialized in financial crimes. He found 2 more women almost immediately. Rachel, a nurse. Kiara, a graphic designer. Both had nearly identical prenups. Both had discovered cheating. Both had walked away broke. Tony spread copies of their agreements across my kitchen table, right where Garrett had pushed the original prenup at me. "Here's the pattern," Tony said. "Same structure, same law firm on multiple documents, same terms, and look at this, money transfers." Garrett had been receiving regular payments from a shell company called Pembroke Investment Holdings. Large deposits appeared shortly after each breakup. "Who owns that company?" I asked. Tony dug. The owner was Garrett's business partner, Richard "Rick" Costas. Further records showed contracts between Garrett and Rick. Written agreements, timelines, payment schedules. Garrett wasn't just a jerk with a prenup. He was part of a structured scam. The deal was simple. Garrett targeted successful women with assets. He love-bombed them, proposed, pushed a prenup designed to strip them of their rights, engineered a breakup, and got paid per job through the shell company. Emotional fraud as a business model, Patricia said when she saw the files. They turned relationships into a revenue stream. We set up a hotline and ran a small legal notice asking if anyone had signed a prenup with Garrett. The calls poured in. Some had almost signed but backed out. Others had lost homes, cars, savings. A few were still paying off debts he'd left them with. Tony uncovered even more. Rick had begun recruiting other men, teaching them the system, taking a cut of their payouts. They were building a network of predators with a script and a playbook. I decided to go nuclear. "Class action," I told Patricia, "against Garrett and Rick. And we go public." We filed suit. The story hit the news. Headlines called Garrett a romance scam architect. The shell company, the contracts, the payouts. It was all laid out. The media wanted interviews. My instinct said to crawl under a rock. My anger said otherwise. I went on national TV and told the story. They played audio Tony had recovered from Rick's office. "The key is making them think it's their idea," Garrett's voice said. "You mention protecting assets, but act reluctant. They'll insist on signing to prove they're not gold diggers." The host looked visibly disgusted. "This was a business for them?" he asked. "A very profitable one," I answered. After that, the hotline exploded. More women, more states, more patterns. Investigators in other cities began recognizing similar schemes and reaching out. And then one call changed everything. "I think they might have killed my daughter," a woman said. Her name was Dorothy. Her daughter Melissa had been engaged to Garrett. She'd died from what the police ruled a suicide gunshot in her apartment. Dorothy explained that Melissa had been tormented by a prenup Garrett demanded she sign. She'd inherited a large amount of money and was terrified of losing it. Dorothy showed us emails Melissa had saved. In them, Garrett grew increasingly cruel. He called her a gold digger when she hesitated. In one message, he mentioned talking to a lawyer and casually noted that if someone died before a wedding, the surviving partner might claim damages from the estate. "Just something to think about," he'd written. I felt sick. Tony reviewed the police file. Melissa had supposedly shot herself with a handgun registered to Garrett. The report claimed she'd used her left hand. Her medical records showed severe nerve damage in that hand since childhood. She was right-handed. Camera footage showed Garrett's car near her apartment that night. It was enough to force the police to reopen the case. Garrett was arrested at work. Rick was arrested at his office. Their computers and files were seized. The fraud was undeniable. The death was re-examined. In court, the prosecution laid everything out. The prenups, the shell company, the pattern of targeting wealthy women, the escalating threats when Melissa resisted, the inconsistencies in the original suicide. Garrett was convicted of multiple fraud charges and of Melissa's murder. Rick was convicted for his role in the scheme. They went from architects and partners to inmate numbers. The civil case followed. The judgment ran into 8 figures. The victims were compensated, and Melissa's estate received the largest share. Dorothy used that money to fund a foundation in her daughter's name, helping foster kids transition into adulthood, the work Melissa had dreamed of doing. Lawmakers took notice. New rules were passed to close financial loopholes predators like Garrett had exploited, especially around targeting inheritance and accessing databases. Meanwhile, I rebuilt my life. I eventually remarried. My new husband, David, never once pressured me about money or contracts. When I brought up prenups, he said, "If you want one to protect yourself, I'll sign. But I'm not asking you to give up your rights to be with me." Our wedding was small. Several of Garrett's victims were there. We weren't just linked by trauma anymore, but by the lives we'd built afterward. I became a victim advocate, working with women who'd been financially abused by partners. I testified in other romance scam cases. I helped design educational programs warning people about coercive prenups and financial red flags. One day, a young woman named Zoe called my hotline. Her boyfriend was pressuring her into signing a prenup that sounded eerily familiar. She'd seen my interview and recognized the language. She showed me the document. It was almost a copy-paste of Garrett's old template. Turns out her boyfriend had once attended a seminar Rick gave before his arrest and had kept the material. Zoe didn't sign. She broke off the engagement, sold the ring, and used the money to start law school. "I want to do what you do," she told me. "I want to help women see this stuff coming." Sometimes I think about how different things could have been if I'd just signed whatever Garrett put in front of me. If I'd ignored the unease in my stomach. If I decided it was just paperwork and kept the peace. Instead, I read the fine print. I got my own lawyer. I refused to be rushed. I refused to be quiet. That one decision didn't just save me. It exposed a network of predators. It helped lock away a killer. It changed laws. It started a foundation. It gave other women the courage to walk away. Garrett believed love makes women easy to manipulate. He was wrong. Real love doesn't ask you to sign away your rights. Real love doesn't need you powerless. And if someone ever tries to make you prove your love by giving up your protections, pick up a pen, call a lawyer, read every line. And if the fine print is designed to destroy you, don't sign your name. Walk away and write a different story.